second round on his part.
See, his colleagues here, should I defer to either Senator Hawley or Senator Marshall? Well, I guess what I'd like to do, and maybe Mr. McKenzie would be the person to speak to this, or Mr. Calhoun. Again, the goal here is to reassure the public that they feel safe to fly. We want Boeing, we want the airline industry to succeed. So can one of you go through the entire quality and safety process that provides that assurance? I talked about all the players in that process, the suppliers, your manufacturing associates, your management, the FAA, which, by the way, the FAA has only turned 172 documents over this committee as well. They're not exactly, as is true in just about every government agency that I've tried to do oversight on, they're not very transparent. But the FAA, and then finally the airlines and their maintenance crews and the pilots. Can you just kind of talk the way through that, you know, even if Boeing doesn't reach perfection, you know, there are other steps beyond that to try and catch errors. So go through that process, please.
I'll start. I'll turn it over to Howard. Alaska was a manufacturing defect. It created an unsafe airplane. Perfection is what our job is, and it has to be absolute. We inspected every airplane that has that plug quickly. We know it was a single airplane. And as I said, for all of the media coverage of Boeing airplanes over the course of this year, I believe that was the only manufacturing defect that's related. Now, so what we do first is we close that down, period. We look at the value chain from the delivery of the airplane all the way back through our supplier. And we take dramatic steps to make sure that at every step of that value chain, that door could never leave the airplane in flight. This was related to our Spirit supplier. And I'll do this just for effect, and I'll let Howard cover a little more. We used to inspect those fuselages when they arrived at our factories. And we had a lot of inspection sites. And then we would fix all the nonconformances that we would find in those inspections in our factories. And it created more movement than we should have. So immediately following this accident, we moved 13 inspection stations down to Wichita. And we we demanded that Spirit treat us as an inspection authority on their premise and treat it like an FAA ticket, so that not a single fuselage would leave that facility that wasn't in perfect condition to come to ours. That was a movement of roughly 200 inspection engineers to do that. And then it required probably at least that or double that from Spirit to help us man those stations so they could learn what this process is. So I say that just because that's how big this effort has been for us, and that is how we've done it. And we have then sent that message to every supplier with respect to perfection of the products that they deliver to us so that they can move through our line in regular order. Otherwise, we have launched a program on factory full floor compliance, hygiene in the factory, pretty much everything, sir. And I know the FAA has paid an awful lot of attention to it. Howard, I don't know if you want to add to that. Yeah.
I want to go downstream as well. You know, once it leaves your factory, these planes are running for, I mean, how many thousands of hours, you know?
Yeah. Why don't you take them through the D checks on the 87?
Yes, Senator, thanks for the question. So from an engineering perspective, I'll just talk very broadly about the whole system. Dave talked about the build aspect. From a design perspective, all of our designs are found to be compliant by FAA standards. We go through a rigorous design process. We do design assurance analyses. We do risk analyses. We do probabilistic analyses. And that assures us that we have compliant design. Dave talked about the build piece of it, but on the back end, we support all of our customers with a continued operational safety process where we monitor the fleet every day, every hour of the day, Everything that should come out of our fleet is determined to be cost reportable or not. If it's a cost reportable item, it goes into our safety review boards. We take action based on the individual aspect of whatever was discovered, a learning. We make a safety determination. That is all shared transparently with the FAA, and the FAA takes their own independent risk analysis based on what we've provided.
And these are airplanes that have been sold or being operated by the
These
airlines?
airplanes have been sold and been operated. We provide our operators with a robust set of operational guidance to keep the airplanes maintained, keep the airplanes repaired, and keep the airplanes supported. We also provide individual support for items that a customer and airline can't support on their own. And then the airplanes go through a rigid structure of repeated inspections over their lifetimes that are
By Boeing?
They perform these inspections per Boeing data given their own FAA-approved maintenance practices. And so it's a constant conversation back and forth. For example, our 787.
Let me just ask, how complex is the maintenance schedule? I mean, how many timed maintenance activities or measures are taken, on a weekly basis, monthly, annual basis by the airlines?
It's multifaceted, Senator. Depending on the airplane system or structure, there are determined maintenance intervals and cycles for different aspects of the airplanes to be inspected at different times. Depending on the airplane, it's what we call limited validation or its life cycle. There are prescribed structural inspections that occur for this 87, for example, 6 years, 12 years, and onward. Those are major structural inspections, but there are interval structural inspections for particular parts of the airplane at regular intervals. For different systems, there are regular intervals to check for individual aspects of each individual system. So it's not a single response, it's multiple.
And if maintenance is required prior to those safety checks or scheduled maintenance, that gets written up and Boeing is aware of that and you bring that into your safety systems and report that to the FAA?
Yeah, our airlines conduct and operate very robust and again, FAA-approved maintenance practices. If they should have a finding in one of their maintenance practices, they will absolutely report it to us. It'll enter our cost system, and then we'll make determinations based on the results of those analyses on whether those maintenance practices need to be adjusted to maintain compliance and safety.
Briefly, what does the pilot do? Or what does the flight crew do before every day or every flight?
Well, they do their regimen of pre-flight checks. They do and every airline has their own prescribed pre-flight checks. They're based on Boeing flight crew operating procedures, but the airlines have the option to define their own for their particular operation. But the pilots go through their pre-flight checks on the airplane. They check the various systems, understand status lights, hazard lights, everything else that might appear in the flight deck.
And all systems have to be go, or we're sitting there at the ground stop and waiting for the maintenance.
Correct. We also have what's called a minimum equipment list that allows airplanes to be dispatched if not every single system is working, but enough are working to provide absolute safe operation. And the airlines operate with that as well as part of the cadre of data that they use to support daily operation. And of course, we are listening to all of the airlines in the world that operate our airplanes and 24/7 clock.
And again, that's why I'd like to get the airline, the CEOs or some representatives come in here and describe that for us. Again, try and set people's minds at ease, but
And along those lines, if I might mention,
your microphone?
along those lines, if I might mention relative to the 87, the structural reviews that Howard referred to, 6 years, 12 years, many of those airplanes have been through those reviews. And we have not had an airplane that has had a better structural integrity than those airplanes as they move through there. Perfect
You're
record,
saying
pretty
the
much a perfect record.
The 787, you're saying?
787, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.